And you've talked a lot about history here during this interview, and I wonder how you view the self-defense organization that you're working with, with sort of historical movements that may be similar in nature. You said you're not a vigilante, right? That this is not a vigilante movement. You're not trying to go out and arrest people or what have you. This is a self-defense oriented thing. How do you place yourself in sort of similar American movements? Like, do you see yourself akin to like the Deacons of Defense, the armed group that would provide security for civil rights movements, or even Ida B. Wells and her writings on armed self-defense? How do you view yourself and this movement?
Well, it's interesting. People keep throwing that word of vigilante around. Most people don't know that vigilante, the idea started in San Francisco around the 1800s when the businessmen there wanted to protect their business from cowboys shooting up the town. So they hired people to come in and do that to take care of it. And then later it morphed into something else. So most people throw those words around. They don't even know how the thing started. We're not vigilantes or practicing vigilanteism. That's something that the Democrats are throwing out to try to cloud the issue and make us seem as if we need to be demonized. I view myself historically, and the people that are with me, we view ourselves as right in line with people that have always stepped to the forefront in social movements, upheavals, and revolutions. In London, a lady by the name of Boudica stepped forward to fight the Romans. Okay, and so here we have an example of a woman leading people to fight against oppression. Other social movements in France, there were people who stepped forward during the Great Terror and the Revolution in France to fight. Oppressed people all over the world have taken up self-defense in order to protect themselves. So what we're doing is not out of the norm. As a matter of fact, historically in America, Black people, when they came to this country or were brought here against their will, for the first 200 years, our first God was not Jesus. Our first God was self-defense. And for 200 years, there were revolts in America. In New Amsterdam, before it was New York, in 1811 in Louisiana, there was an uprising. And of course, we know about Nat Turner's rebellion, but there were many, many more. And so what we're doing is not out of the norm for Black people. If it was not for us defending ourselves in America, we might not be here. The Red Summer of 1917, 1918, Black men came back from France. They knew how to shoot. They saw that people would die. And when they came back and went on the plantation and the boss man said, do this, and they say, well, wait a minute, boss, then they weren't going back to doing what they were doing before. They took up their arms and defended themselves. And so, culturally speaking, what we're doing with the Self-Defense Brigade as Black and brown people is right in line with what we did the first 200 years that we came to this country. I don't see self-defense as something that is a bad word. I don't see armed self-defense as something that is negative. And I think the people who try to propose that are trying to put forth what I call revisionist history about how Black people survived, how other oppressed people survived all over this earth from the time of Rome, plebes against patricians, up until this point now.
And a lot of that, perhaps understandably, with the level of violence that Hartford has seen, you've got almost like a warlike metaphors throughout much of this interview, do you see hope for, the communities moving beyond that state of like violence into something where there's more reconciliation is that's
Wait, hold on
your
a minute.
ultimate goal?
I heard you say something about violence. What? I didn't hear that last word.
Yeah, no, it's a lot of these metaphors that you're using are obviously warlike situations that you're referring to, and the violence in Hartford has been pretty elevated, and perhaps understandable that that's how things are viewed right now in the community. But are you hopeful that you could move beyond that phase through these sorts of actions to get to a more peaceful stage in Hartford in the future?
Well, I don't see what we're doing as not meaningful. I don't see it as warlike. I see it as the oppressed determining what they feel is necessary for their own liberation.
Mm-hmm.
And people want to depict it as warlike. But again, the people who are in power are the ones who are attempting to characterize us in those fashions. If we were singing "We Shall Overcome," if we were praying, if we were holding hands singing "Kumbaya," if we were rubbing our rosary beads, they would say Cornell's a great man. But now I'm warlike. I'm demonizing. I'm riling up the masses to do different things. Well, wait a minute. If you did your job like you should, we wouldn't be doing this right now. So these are not violent ideas. This is not
right
warlike language. It is the language of the oppressed. And again, those in power have no right whatsoever to tell us how to fight. Many of these people that are running their mouth, they don't live in that neighborhood. They are talking from afar, where it's safe, Eden-like atmosphere, manicured lawns, things of that nature. And we're catching hell right here in these neighborhoods because of what's going on. So they can say whatever they want to say, and they can keep saying it. But I tell you plainly now, and I tell them, it doesn't make any difference what you say or do. I'm going to ram the agenda of the people down your throat, and I'm going to make you like it.